Hello and welcome to Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. I am your host, Jake Lewitt, and on this show we talk about the Deep Blue Sea franchise, one DVD chapter at a time, but we've done all of that. All three Deep Blue Sea films are complete. My co-host Mark is taking a break to look after his adorable little girl, and I'm looking at some Deep Blue Sea adjacent films that I haven't seen before, but for the most part Mark has. Apparently I use the word adjacent too often, my wife has told me recently. I don't care. It's the best way to describe it. These are films like Deep Blue Sea, but not Deep Blue Sea. And this week we're looking at a film that is actually quite a lot like Deep Blue Sea, in many ways, apart from quality. We're looking at Ice Sharks this week. What is Ice Sharks? Well, it's our first Asylum film. I vowed to never watch an Asylum film for this project, but hey, here we are. We have a guest who picked it. Ice Sharks is 2016 TV movie. Developed by the Asylum, released originally on the Sci-Fi Channel, I think. Directed and written by Emil Edwin Smith, starring a bunch of people you've never heard of. And it tells the story of a group of scientists at an Arctic research centre who are out one day and they find out that global warming may have thawed out some passageways that have released some super evolved Greenland sharks that are out for blood. And that's about it, really. So we need someone who not only has seen the film before, but specifically picked it to talk about today, something that I don't think anybody else would ever do. Returning to the show is from Crack.com is Zanandi Boetes. Zanandi, welcome back.
Hi, Jay. I'm so sorry.
You should be.
Will you ever forgive me?
We'll see. It depends what you pick next. But I agreed to this one because I thought, Ice Sharks, fine. Because I checked YouTube and it was on YouTube, and I thought, great, I can... You know, it's less than an hour and a half long. It's free. I can just watch this and we'll have a fun episode about it. And I started watching the one on YouTube, only to find out that's in Italian, with no English subtitles. So I had to.
Wow.
So I've had to pay money to watch Ice Sharks.
Incredible.
Incredible. This podcast is costing me too much money.
I'm again so sorry, Jay.
Well, so I shelled out 3 whole English pounds to watch Ice Sharks. I don't actually own it. I own it on iTunes. It is mine to watch. I watched it twice because we've had to reschedule when we're recording this.
Yeah.
And so why Ice Sharks? What is it about this terrible, terrible film that made you think, yes, I don't want to talk about a Jaws sequel or a Rennie Harlin film or a good piece of cinema. I want to talk about that. Ice Sharks. Why?
Well, first of all, I knew everyone was going to go with the obvious picks, like your with the Shallows and you're actually like good quality, good production, got some money behind it, movies. And you guys are like, okay, well, it's still going to be on the Deep Blue Sea pod. And there really is just one movie that I've seen that always reminds me of Deep Blue Sea. Or immediately reminded me of Deep Blue Sea when I watched it the first time on our local satellite service that had a couple of random shark movies for Shark Week 2 years ago, I think. It was actually before the pandemic. Yeah, I watched it randomly. It was there's a lot of plot points that reminds you of Deep Blue Sea. So I thought, well, if you guys are up for it, why not? I mean, we do like featuring quirky, never before seen movies. And honestly, if you just want to laugh, if you're in the mood for a movie that is not good, but they will scenes that will just blow your mind a little bit. There's literally someone's knee exploding at one point. You've got sharks crashing, jumping straight through the ice, grabbing people. It's terrible. It's awesome. Scientists just going about on snowmobiles, having the time of their lives. That moment, Jay. What is that? I mean, is that the only fun these people have?
I will admit, this was a surprising film. Things happened that I was not expecting.
No!
Some huge leaps in logic are made, but I think as soon as it came up, an Asylum production, I just threw away my notebook. I was like, we're not going to need to worry about logic or physics or anything here. This isn't what we're here for. This is just going to be a terrible film with bad actors doing awful things. And for the most part, that is correct. But I mean, a few weeks back we talked about Shark in Venice on this show. Have you seen Shark in Venice?
I have not actually.
Okay.
That's on my list.
It should
Is
be.
it a good one? Is it better than Ice Sharks?
It is. See, I watched Ice Sharks. I recently recorded a podcast episode very late, or very early in the morning for me. It was midnight was the start of it, just for scheduling reasons. And I finished that, and I was awake. And because once you finish the podcast, you're alert, you're awake. It's hard to just go to sleep after that. So that's when I watched Ice Sharks. It was at like 2 a.m. in the morning on a Saturday.
Wired from the
Yes,
pod,
exactly.
watching Ice Sharks.
Yes, as I think that's kind of when it's designed to be watched. So that's when I first watched it, and I watched that, and then later that day, or that evening, I watched Shark in Venice for the recent episode. Shark in Venice is not a good film. It is. I described it. It's a remake of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, starring Stephen Baldwin and Scarlett Johansson's sister, and it's about as good as that sounds. It's poorly made, ridiculous plot, utter nonsense, terrible graphics. But because I'd watched it mere hours after watching Ice Sharks, I thought it was phenomenal. So.
Oh, well, you see, Ice Sharks did some good.
But Shark in Venice should definitely be watched by everyone. It's a lot of fun. Although I've already had one of our listeners complain that I've recommended it to him to watch.
Oh, well,
So-
yeah, people will probably hate me for this one, but
I have advised him not to watch Ice
open
Sharks.
mind, people. Open mind.
Yeah, I've
Just
told him
keep
not
an
to watch
open
this,
mind.
but he's still going to watch it. So Rob, I warned you. But
I'm sorry, Rob.
because this is very much you need to go into this film knowing it's not going to be good. This is after a few beers, come back from the pub, chuck on Ice Sharks, see what happens kind of a film.
Absolutely. Here's the thing, Jay. I mean, the moment I saw on the schedule from our local service scheduling, I saw the title, I saw it, Ice Sharks, and I immediately knew, oh, this is going to be so bad. I immediately just instinctively knew this. Without reading the blurb, without seeing an image, I just knew Ice Sharks, yes, going to be terrible. Fiction, yes, it's going to be terrible. Okay, so
I feel like it
went
needs an
into this.
exclamation mark, like Ice Sharks. It needs...
Exactly. Every time me and my husband say it, we're like, Ice Sharks! Like, we literally do that because I feel like that is definitely the mood you have to be in to watch this movie. Like the same mood that, like, you're going to be excited and cheer for all the bad things happening. Like, yes, terrible graphics. Woohoo! Look at that terrible shark. Amazing. Cheer. Like, you know, if you're into a drinking game, maybe. I wouldn't recommend it. You'll be very, very drunk very, very soon. But, like, you know, all these, like, it's kind of rooting for, like, all the stuff that they attempted to do. And that's what you're cheering for. They're attempting stuff. They're not, like, it's not brilliantly executed. Half of the time it doesn't work at all. But you're still cheering for the effort and for the attempts. So... yeah, that is really the vibe because, I mean, I don't know. Jay, how did you feel by the end of it? Did you feel like that was way too absurd of terribleness?
I think by the end, my main problem, as I said, I kind of went in expecting terrible acting, terrible effects. Got both of those. I think most of the cast are kind of sci-fi film regulars. Where the main guy Edward DeRuiter, who plays David, yes. He's actually the writer of Mega Shark versus Colossus and Two-Headed Shark Attack.
Incredible.
And is the star.
The guy has a niche.
Yeah, the star of this film. But he's appeared. Not many actors have appeared in many other things. The guy who plays Michael, he has been in a bunch of things I've actually heard of. He's in like Cop Shop from last year, and Den of Thieves from a few years back, with the Gerard Butler film. So he's been in like big films with big name stars in them, in roles that you might not remember. But he's in them. He's like the one guy who seems to have almost made it. He was in an episode of Westworld, so he's getting there, where everyone else is kind of. Not so much. He's the guy who seems to have gotten out. Good for him. But for the most part, like the lady who plays Tracy, Jenna Parker, is awful. And when she and David go out on their little snowmobiles to when they first discover that there are sharks, I'm like, this is fine. She's gonna die. She's going to go out there and she'll be like the first person killed.
She'll be
and
Joss.
the fact that she survives the film is heartbreaking.
It kind of blows your mind. I mean, like for me, it's just she's just constantly exasperated about everything all the time. Like it's like great, someone went missing. Now I can't just hang around here and make out with my boyfriend. Like, oh great, the long distance or the long range radio got damaged. Like, because, we're, trying to escape from killer sharks trying to sink us. But, she's just like, woe is me all the time.
To be fair,
annoying.
No one in the film is as concerned about anything as they should be at any moment.
Also true.
Which we'll run through the plot in a little bit, because this film takes some turns, and I need people to kind of go on those with us. But there are things that occur that should be not just panicking for life-threatening, but sheer wonder that you're in this situation, let alone alive, and could possibly die.
That's true. I don't feel any of these characters are equipped for any of the things happening, at all.
Not at all. But I think like my biggest problem at the end of it was the script, not necessarily the plot, but just the dialogue. I don't know if it was mostly improvised or tightly scripted and they just read what was on the page, but you have 2 consecutive lines of dialogue. I've got, there could be a new warm current under there, immediately followed by somebody replying, these numbers have to be wrong unless there's a new warm current under there. And it's just immediate repetition. Like it's just
immediate. Yeah.
This needed, I don't know, a second draft. This script. I just write it down once, then the next day read through, just kind of think, I could reword so it's not the exact same 5 words in a row at the end of the sentence immediately following that same 5. I just needed a little bit more depth to the script, just a little bit more imagination to the script, to the actual vocabulary.
I feel like maybe also just like a second or a third opinion, because you get the feeling that they're really so scared you will miss some of it, like they just don't want you to miss anything. So we've got the repetition, we've got again so much exposition. I feel like Jay,
so much unnecessary exposition. A character falls into the water, Arctic water, very cold. They bring it back. They bring him back to the base, and one character says, "Let's get him upstairs, where it's a little bit warmer and less humid." We need none of that. Just do it.
Just do it.
Like less humid. Why is that important information?
Yeah, it's a lot of talking. It's really just a lot of talking. I also find it funny that like with the Deep Blue Sea episodes that we did, like the first 2, Deep Blue Sea 1 and 2, that I got both the exposition like snippets of the movie, and then I choose Ice Shark to cover, which has got
it's like 80% exposition.
And at this point, Jay, I'm like, what is a shark movie if it doesn't have some solid exposition dialogue? It's my viewpoint at this stage.
You finally got a chapter with sharks. Yeah, because you were in very early on when Sam Jackson had just arrived at Aquatica,
the plane bus, the plane,
and then you were back for Deep Blue Sea 3. You were on for 2. Yeah, you were on.
Yeah, for 2, I had the tie when we met the lawyer tie
so you
guy.
You kind of had sharks, but not very much.
Not a lot. And then in 3, I got the first date, which was off screen, but that's the best I get.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't apologize for choosing out sharks too much. Maybe not.
If it gets released, we will cover it if it's released. But if we get a Deep Blue Sea 4, and we will have our fingers crossed that we do, I cannot make a promise, but we will try and have you back for a shark chapter.
That would be amazing. Yeah, like I want the base kill. I want the base kills.
You're just gonna have the closing credits. We'll have you back for that episode. The Nick Rehack role.
Oh gosh, yeah, the Nick role.
Let's go through the plot of Ice Sharks, shall we? He said with derision. So